weeks ago, I'm in Indigo, and a Time magazine catches my eye. 100 must-see movies. I like movies, I thought, and got it. Wasn't feeling that great about it when the indigenous representation turned out to be Nanook of the North, but there was an Alfred Hitchcock movie I've never heard of, The 39 Steps, based on a novel of the same name by John Buchan, and featuring a Canadian main character. The character, Hanny, is supposedly Canadian. He's played by an English actor named Robert Dunant, who's not even trying to tone down his accent for the part. The only way the character is identified as Canadian is he occasionally mentions the city of Montreal and always demands to be taken to the Canadian consulate whenever he's getting arrested. Anyway, the film opens with Hanny taking in a show called Mr. Memory. Mr. Memory is a savant similar to Rain Man, only with facts too. All of a sudden, shots are fired and a riot breaks out. Outside, a lady named Smith asks to go home with him. There she tells him 2 men are following her to kill her because she's learned the location and identity of their evil organization's leader, who's obtained secret air ministry plans that he's going to smuggle out of the country, and it's a threat to national security. He can be known by his missing little finger, and it's all to do with the 39 steps. Title drop. Hannay, understandably, thinks Smith is mentally unwell. Go to the window, she says. He does, and there are 2 men watching the building malevolently. Doesn't call the cops though, just tells her to sleep there and she can leave in the morning. Not sleeping with a woman he believes mentally ill is the only non-creepy thing he does in the film, and I think it's more to explain why he's not killed along with her. She's killed that night. Hannay believes her then, and after replaying pretty much all of the exposition from less than a minute ago, Hannay takes a map she had, and there is then a beat where he tries to tell someone who doesn't believe him. So he heads to Altna Shillak, the location on Smith's map and entirely made up for this movie, in Scotland, somewhere in Scotland, where he thinks Smith's people are, who will help him. On the train he sees his picture in a paper. It must be a special edition. He's wanted for Smith's murder now. The police board the train and start searching for him. He finds a woman alone in a cabin, played by Madeline Carroll. Pamela, he calls, reading her name off her luggage, and grabs her and forces her into a kiss. Well, some man's having himself a free lunch in there, haha, laughs the cops and move on. Annie demands she help him, and she's presented as like a total bitch, or Karen. Same thing, only trolls will get called out for using the word bitch. When she calls help police, who come back and recognize him, he jumps off the train, walks the rest of the way across Scotland. Well, he takes a couple of days, I guess. He boards with this farm couple. The guy's the embodiment of the greedy, dishonest Scotsman stereotype, and the wife's played by Peggy Ashcroft. She warns him, then gives him her husband's darker colored coat so he can escape off into the early morning hours when the police show up. He goes to the largest house in Altna Shillak. I'm a friend of Smith's. He's brought in, and the guy asks him about Smith and all she's told him. Of course, when Hannay gets to the part of the missing little finger, he shows his hand. Altna Shillak's guy is the evil organization leader. He shoots Hannay. Cut to the farm couple. Where's my hymn book? It was in my coat breast pocket. I gave your coat to Hannay. So he starts beating her. Her screams transitioning back and blending with the sheriff's laughter. Well, I've seen it happen with cigarette cases, but I guess I'm not surprised. Some of those hymns are mighty hard to get through. The cops show up to arrest Hannay then, but he smashes through the window and sneaks away as part of the marching band of a passing-by parade. Like you do. He tries ducking into an open back door, but comes out on stage to a packed audience expecting a speech, which he starts making one up. Except Pamela is in the audience. She points him out to the police. 2 detectives show up. "We'll take him, officers." On the way out, Hannay stops to berate Pamela for thinking herself clever and failing to see his sincerity in identifying him to the police. The not really detectives take her too. On the ride back to the evil organization's leader's place, he makes them, and I think the actor must have been a real self-important priss, because when he does, one of them hits him. It's clearly in the script and in character, and also it's the softest baby tap that could possibly be pulled and still qualify as a hit. And the guy gets this petulant, barely restrained look of affronted rage. Anywho, being as how this part of the film's taking place in Scotland, a flock of sheep completely block up the road at this critical intersection of the plots. The guys get out to clear the road, handcuffing Pamela to Hannay to keep Hannay from escaping, which he immediately does, dragging, shoving, and throttling her to do so. Once he's got away, she tries to ask him, "Why are you doing this? You can't possibly get anywhere." "Certainly not tied down to you," he snaps at her. "You are the white man's burden. 20 million women on this island, and I've got to be chained to you." He's the real victim of the 2 of them. Then he's gaslighting her. "If I'm a murderer, then you're chained to a murderer at night, in the middle of nowhere. How does that work out for you?" Pamela says she'll go with his behavior to assess her situation. He throttles her again. They come to an inn, and, kind of most disturbingly to me at least, he turns into this day-for-night gentleman. "Oh, the poor lady's terribly soaked and tired. Do we really need to waste all that time with IDs and paperwork?" Which the innkeeper completely falls for and falls all out to accommodate him. Alone in the room, he's a complete creep, grabbing at her skirt and copping a feel when she takes off her soaking wet stockings, demanding what's in her purse, and he takes her nail file and starts trying to file through the chain of their cuffs. Then, while he's trying that, resumes his woe is me harangue. "Chained to some woman who thinks I'm a murderer, who after I'm caught and hanged will probably take her grandkids to my display at Madame Trousseau's," which she laughs at. Movie shorthand for, "They should be a couple." Anyway, he falls asleep. She takes back her nail file, uses it to loosen the slip out of the cuffs. She gets to and escapes. She gets to the lobby where the 2 guys are there and reporting in to the evil organization leader. After hanging up, the one of them explains to the other that evil organization leader's got the wind up and is now warning the whole 39 steps and moving to get the plans out of the country after he's picked him up from the London Palladium. They start asking the bartender about Pamela and Hannay, but just before the bartender can tell them, the innkeeper kicks them out. "Oh, don't give away that sweet young couple." Pamela goes back, and he's a complete shit to her before forgiving her for not believing the story he didn't believe either. Then shouting at her that she's an idiot for letting them go, because, yeah, jackass, she couldn't keep you from abducting her, but she's supposed to stop 2 actual armed murderers. She gets mad, leaves, and goes to Scotland Yard, who tell her, "Yes, the Air Ministry has got some top-secret MacGuffin, but we're sure nothing about it's gone. Now, where is Henny? He knew your name, he was kissing you, and showed up at the theater where you were waiting to hear whoever give the speech. You must be well acquainted with him and can tell us all we need to know." Fuck the police. She tells them she doesn't know him, and they let her go in order to follow her to the London Palladium, where Hannay has spotted evil organization leader. She tells him about going to Scotland Yard, at which point Mr. Memory comes out, and Hannay replays several scenes back to come to a moment of total movie bullshit brilliance. I always hear commenters now making fun of exposition scenes. "Gee, I wonder if that's going to be relevant to the plot later." Well, filmmaking used to be a lot less elegant, apparently. Anyway, Hannay calls out, "What are the 39 steps?" And Mr. Memory begins answering, "The 39 steps are an organization of spies collecting information. Evil organization leader shoots him and runs away." Mr. Memory doesn't die right away, though, and Hannay and Pamela manage to get to him. Hannay asks, what was the Air Ministry's secret? And Mr. Memory rattles off this 65-degree axis of cylinders, engine design that'll change the rate of compression, thereby rendering the engine completely silent while in flight with his dying breath. Presumably enough people heard for it to be undeniable that there had been a breach at the Air Ministry, because the last shot is Hannay taking hold of Pamela's hand to romantic music. This movie sucked. Now, I know old films aren't today's standards, and also I'm not an expert on older films, but I have seen a few of them, and the other ones were not as problematic as this, and the narrative didn't have this patriarchal entitlement of any material or demand wherein absolutely any endangerment or harm Hannay brings on the women he intrudes himself on must just be justified somehow. It must be for like an important man's cause. As I've said, this is the first movie recommendation list I've seen with this movie on it. This list by film critic Stephanie Zacharek also included Pandora's Box, Bonnie and Clyde, Last Tango in Paris, Taxi Driver, and Irma Vep, which are also films I've never seen on such a list, but have heard comments regarding their messaging, the problematic nature of their messaging. It's almost as if Zacharek went out of her way to cater to films like this. And she's not the first woman film commenter I've heard do so. And I have to wonder why. So as not to be seen as pushing some feminist agenda. I feel there are other ways of avoiding that. And it doesn't seem like other film commenters do this. I've never heard indigenous commenters saying, well, if you look at Disney's Peter Pan and Pocahontas in terms of animation technique alone, or trans commenters saying, well, Psycho and Silence of the Lambs were problematic representation, but, or black commenters talking about Birth of a Nation, or Japanese commenters about Memoirs of a Geisha. I think I made my point. To end, I would observe that perhaps it is the ever-perpetuation of such patriarchal entitlement narratives that lend credence to real life and death situations, like cops like Eric Pratt taking the position and fatal inaction of, I'm not going to interfere with two people who just need to love each other.